Here at Unity, we greet you in the name of all that is beautiful and sacred, where we embrace all spiritual paths that teach love. Unity offers a positive path for spiritual living that helps to support people in expressing their divine potential for healthy, abundant, and meaningful lives. Unity welcomes people of every creed, color, ethnicity, age, socioeconomic background, sexual orientation, and people with disability. Unity leaves no one out. We also like to say that you're not here by accident, but by divine appointment, and thank you for joining us and sharing your presence with us today.
Gentlemen, thank you for the fabulous music. Tom, thank you for making me sound good and look good. And Gina, thank you so much for being here for me this weekend. I can't tell you how much this means. My talk today is Hungry for God. And I just got to tell you, for the first 43 years of my life, I had no idea. And there's a story behind this plant, that this plant brings me so much spiritual nourishment that I had to bring it with me, and I just received it as a gift last night. Gina's staying, many of you know that Gina moved to La Jolla, and so she's staying at my house so that she could specifically be my platform assistant today. And she called me at about 8:30, and she knew I was working on this all day, and I was so stressed about, you're my Unity family, right? But I was still very worried that I would deliver a good message, so I probably hadn't eaten. And she called, and she kind of knew that because we've lived together, and she knows me. She said, Kelly, can I bring you anything? And I know what Gina would bring, and it would be cookies or candy or brownies or whatever. And I just knew I couldn't do that. I said, no, thank you. So she shows up on my door, and she knocks on the door like this. She goes, here, I brought you a flower. She said, but wait, let me tell you how I decided on that. She said, I was sitting eating pickup sticks, and I opened up the fortune cookie, and you notice there's a little fortune on here, and the fortune reads, flowers would brighten the day of your close friend tomorrow. Wow. If that's not spiritual nourishment every time I look at that, I don't know what is. And I constantly make a practice now of looking for God, of finding God. Where is God? Because God was the last place I used to go, and it wasn't workable. I'd like to read a quote for you from Mother Teresa, and I came across this yesterday. I was preparing the lesson and looking for things that might be appropriate, and it just nailed it for me. The greatest disease in the West today is not tuberculosis or leprosy. It is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. There are many in the world who are dying for God. I had never heard that quote, and that's exactly, for so many years, what I had been experiencing. Many of you know, like Gina shared, that I am studying to be a licensed Unity teacher, and this is the first time I've given the lesson here at Unity of Aliso Viejo. And so my story is about what I know about best, which is me. And so it might sound a little autobiographical, and I share with you and I tell you this not to elicit emotion and compassion and sympathy or empathy. I share this for you to identify the human emotions and the human feelings that I went through. It could have been anyone, regardless of the story. I want you to identify with that so you know that there are other people that are going through or have gone through what you're going through, and you don't have to do it alone, and you don't have to get stuck there. What I learned in my journey, which we'll talk about in just a moment, is that only God can fill an empty heart. I thought this was a fabulous image. and did a part of the seminar, and her name was Dr. Sylvia Lang, and she's a therapist here locally. And she was going through a long litany of different emotions and the missing that correlates to those emotions. And she was going through sadness and grief and all of these, and she got to anger, and she goes, and anger is an unfulfilled need. And I immediately, in my head, skyrockets went off. Well, who is she to call me angry? And I don't need anything. What's wrong with her, right? So that was my knee-jerk emotion. Through my history of my life, I looked at that and I was sitting there and I was seething inside. What does she mean by angry is an unfulfilled need? I can't even believe that. Somebody must have told her to say something about anger because I was so angry inside. From the time I was a small child, I was so angry. And when I was in an abusive relationship with my ex-husband, I was so angry. And then when we divorced, I was so angry. And all the things that had happened to me over the course of my life, I was just ready to explode at any moment. So much so that I was attacked coming home from the swimming pool, and my attacker came at me, and I just went all cray-cray all over him. And I, at the top of my lungs, was screaming every profanity. He ran, I ran after him because get back here. If you're going to start it, I'm going to finish it. That's the kind of anger we're talking about. I don't know if it has anything to do with the hair, but maybe. That's how angry I was. And so what I realized in that anger and that unfulfilled need as I sat there and I was quiet and I was peaceful and I was trying to be zen in front of all of these really wonderful women is she was right. I did have an unfulfilled need. I needed to know God. I needed God's love. All those places, all those things that had happened to me that were scary when I was a kid, I didn't know God. I didn't feel God. I didn't know how to self-soothe. God would work for everyone else, but if you knew what happened to me, you would know that I wasn't worthy of God's love. Now, of course, these are the things that we make up about ourselves as a child, and there's a journey that goes along with it. And I'm going to take you through that right now from having that experience of so much shame and so much not enoughness and so much despair and so lost and so broken and so empty inside to where I am now that I am so full of love and peace and unmessable. Doesn't mean things don't happen, but as I tell you this right now, I am completely unmessable because I know, like in the meditation, God is within. So my first relationship with God was that of very much of a fast food God. I grew up like nobody's business, and something would happen, and even though God was the last place I went to as of late, I mean, I did try to use God back then, so our Father, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, blah, 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 right? And maybe that'll be better, right? Well, guess what? That didn't work. And my fast food God also, when I was married, looked like me going to church. I went to a Catholic church, but I didn't go to service because I really didn't want them to tell me what to do, right? I wanted God to just do it for me, right? I just wanted to place my order with God and have it magically appear. So I would go at the off times, and I would go to church when I had a fight with my husband, when I had an unknown financial issue come up, when something was out of my control. I would go to church and I would sit in the front in the pew in the empty church and beg God to work on it and make it feel better and make it right now. And guess what? That didn't really work. In fact, what happened is probably it made it worse because I only went to God when I needed something. And my life took a couple turns. I did end up divorcing that husband, and when I did, it was kind of the beginning of a very slippery slope for me, and I turned into an absolute train wreck. I was had this huge, gaping, God-shaped hole in my heart, and I was trying to fill it with relationships, with food, with alcohol, with gambling, with you name it, whatever it was. I wanted to fill that, and I was looking to outside sources to fill that hole up. I was so involved and so wrapped up in that I had a therapist who came to me and said, Kelly, you know what? You're in a very bad place, and we're going to need to do something, or I'm going to 5150 you to that extent. And at about that same time, I had a friend who came to me and said, Kelly, I don't know what you're doing, but if you don't quit it, you're going to kill yourself. And I thought, oh, how dramatic. And I realized everything was slipping out from under me. I was losing properties, I was losing money, I was losing my sanity, I couldn't get out of bed, and I was scared. For the first time in my life, I wasn't angry, I was scared. And for me, it got down to a matter of find God or die. Again, that's a very dramatic thing, and maybe I am dramatic, but it was that. It was, for me, it was find God or die. So I made a deal with my therapist, and I was going to do all this laundry list of things, and that wonderful friend of mine introduced me to programs for people who do things that, do try to fill the God-shaped hole with everything other than God. And he also introduced me to agape. And I loved agape, and this starts my journey of my all-you-can-eat buffet God, right? So going to agape for me is what really goes on up here. And she would speak, and I would cry. And I would be so moved. And we would all hug her as we would go out, and I couldn't tell her. I could only just cry and hug her. And I came here, and I sat, and I got filled up. And I got filled up with God. And when I would be in agape, and I would be in meetings, and I would be here at church, I would feel God's presence. But then I would go out there, and I would be lost again. It wasn't enough. I have a disease of not enoughness. It wasn't enough. I volunteer for hospice. I help out here at the church a little bit. I help out in some other groups. And what that's done for me is that's created an unfailing, unmeltable self out to someone else, and I'm making sure that they never had to feel the way that I felt. They never have to feel alone, and they may be in those dark and scary places, but I want them to know they're not alone in that. And that's where I get filled up with God. I also learned, as I'm taking the Unity classes and the Unity teachings, I learned about the 4 levels or real, something that is true, especially a fundamental and inevitably true value. The quality or state of being truthful or honest. And I will tell you what is true. Each one of you are God for me. My insides to your outsides. And now I know, through Verity Consciousness, that what it is I see in each and every one of you is what's in me as well. And that has brought me so much peace and so much joy, and has made me unmessable, has made me comfortable in my own skin. I'd like to finish with a quote that I don't think could ever be heard too many times. It's from Marianne Williamson. And it's big. It just means a lot to me. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? That's what I see in all of you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just for some of us, it's for everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Let's take a moment to know this inward. Tuning into the God that not just protects us, guides us, and surrounds us, but the very God that's within us. Knowing that as we teach our children in unity, there is no spot where God is not. And that love of God, allow it to fill your soul and overflow into everything you do. And so it is.
And this part of our service is our sacred walk of abundance. The law of giving and receiving is a principle understood by all spiritual traditions. We invite you to experience this principle in body, mind, and spirit. As you feel comfortable, please come forward on either side and take an affirmation blessing from the crystal bowl. If you have a financial offering, please place it in a silver plate. If you do not have a financial offering this morning, please still come forward and bless the bowl and take a blessing. Some of you give it your your credit card and through the mail and through many other different ways, so please don't hesitate to come up and receive a blessing from the bowl. So let us speak our offering blessing together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I give and all that I receive. Amen. And now our musicians will lead us into a time of meditation.
Spirit, by your love, I now rest in your eternal arms. Quietly I go within and hear. Be still and know that I am God.
Be still. Relax into your chair, knowing that this is a safe and loving space for you to be in. Turn your attention inward to that which beats your heart and breathes your body. What is this infinite source? Where is it? Some call it the God seed, and it dwells inside of you. As you envision this God seed, you may see it as a brilliant, bright, white light. As you acknowledge its presence, you notice that this white light grows inside of you, completely filling you with love and warmth and joy like you've never known before. There's so much your body can't contain it, and it spills out into the room, showering everyone in the room with this wonderful white light, so much so that it spills out into the building, into the city, reaching through the entire state. All of this love emanating inside of you completely engulfs and wraps around the entire globe. Be with this feeling, how good this feels to be filled and to be generating this type of love, this much love. Enjoy. Returning our attention back to this time and space, we are so grateful for having taken this moment of spiritual nourishment and knowing that anytime we wish, anytime we're feeling scared or lonely, we can tune into this God seed and be filled with God's love from the inside. And so it is.
Sing with me now, Sweep Over My Soul. Sweep over my soul. sweep over my soul. Come, gracious Spirit, sweep in grace and joy. And so it is.